Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Goldfish Report. I'm your host, Louisa. Today is Sunday, September 23rd, 2018, and this is a very special Goldfish Report that's titled Steel Magnolias. And for anyone who saw the movie, you get the idea of what it represents. And our special guest today, and I have the honor and pleasure to introduce and to join us again, returning guest on the Goldfish Report, is award-winning filmmaker, researcher, Patty Greer. So Patty, thank you so much for joining us today.
I love being your friend. Thank you, Louisa.
Thanks, Patty. And of course, we also have another lovely, strong steel magnolia with us, another returning guest of the Goldfish Report, Laura Eisenhower, researcher, alchemist, astrologer, cosmic mythologist, just an amazing and really amazing, incredible woman. And of course, great-granddaughter of President Eisenhower. Laura, thank you so much for joining us again today.
Thanks so much for having me, Louisa. It's good to be here.
You know, I wanted to put this series together. It's really going to become a series called Steel Magnolias, and I wanted to really highlight the divine feminine, the perseverance of the divine feminine, and without being a feminist and without compromising our femininity and becoming more masculine, because it's a problem a lot of women have who become strong women, and they tend to take on a more masculine type. Well, look at Theresa May. Okay, so she's kind of more masculine looking. And I said I wasn't going to name names today, but it's just, you know, they don't embody a sense of divine femininity. And so it is difficult sometimes to rise up in society to bring this wisdom and knowledge, but we're going to bring it today, and we're going to talk about a lot of very important topics, and we're going to do it in such a divine, incredible way, because these are very, very impressive women, very strong women, and extremely intelligent. And we're going to start with the topic of this New Age deception, and basically this ascension itself. What is the status of it? And let me just start with Laura. What is the status of this ascension right now? Is this still real, or is this fake? Is it what do we believe? How do we discern what's really happening right now?
Well, there's so much coming in from the outside, and I think people are really getting lost in what to attach themselves to. And I think that's where the danger is right there, because that's been something taught to us for so many generations that it's really hard to break away and then all of a sudden feel it's safe to be sovereign and rely on our own mechanisms. To me, it's about integration of polarity. And anytime we see that duality still play out, and any ascension meme connected to something that's not fully in balance, I would say that that's a big red flag. I mean, we see with the right and left, and when it comes to all this stuff being purged and exposed, when it comes to child trafficking or pedophilia, everybody still thinks it's about the right or left, when it's always been affecting both sides. When we look at the masculine and feminine, women might feel the need to rise up and create almost a dismissal of them without considering that the best way we can operate is nurturing that internal balance of all polarity within ourselves. Because when we do that, we're in our authenticity. And when we're in our authenticity, we can have better discernment, and we are able to see the truth more clearly. Because any time only an aspect of ourselves is being yanked at or convinced it's better than another, then we're denying half of ourselves. We're denying an important aspect in ourselves. And we're always going to be monitoring things based on the stuff that comes in versus cultivating it from inside. So ascension to me is real as long as we can generate it from the inside out and notice what's coming in from the outside and asking yourself all the right questions. Is it empowering? Is it encouraging? Does it help one to see things in a more unified way? Does it help with forgiveness and compassion? Or does it keep a battle and war alive? Because I find some of these threads just on social media when it comes to just even saying anything positive about what might be happening with some of the indictments. People automatically think, oh, you must be a Trump supporter. Oh, that's a right-wing or left-wing conspiracy, depending on where you are. And I'm so dyslexic with right and lefts anyway. I'm like, I can't even think on those terms. I'm just coming from a place of let's bust the crimes against humanity. I don't care who you are. I don't have a bias towards one side or the other. And even if it's people that I formerly had admiration to, I don't want to be attached enough to all of a sudden ignore the victims. But I do believe there needs to be a fair trial, because when it comes to mind control, and if there is hidden agendas to pit the two against each other, we need to be able to look at all components. So I think the false deception part also is where people are very negative, very dismissive about some of the harder stuff to look at. Because the thing is, we all have to be spiritual warriors here. We have to protect the children. We have to protect each other. We have to protect the planet. And in order to be able to move into higher earth energies, we have to be willing to purge out all the stuff that has kept us from being able to do that. And so it requires going into the dark night of the soul and facing the dark agendas and looking at them for what they really are, not to go into fear, but to recognize that that offers us some room to really blossom and remember that it's ourselves we're falling back on. If there's nothing outside that we can really trust, instead of battling who's who, even though that's important, let's cultivate what we're made of. Because to me, it's about DNA activation, and it's about us rising above these power structures in order to starve the parasites that have been feeding on us. And those that are good will remain, but those who aren't, we're unplugging from. So we have to step back enough to begin to see the changes that are taking place. So yeah, deception to me is when people look too much outside themselves. And true ascension, as far as I'm concerned, is the willingness to expand and become grounded and really connect with the natural world, and not fall prey to feeling like you have to be somebody other than you're not. Even if it means that you have to process some difficult emotions, that's still a part of it. That whole enlightenment thing, or it's a bad thing to have sadness or anger, or to be pointing out some of the darker agendas, to me just gets us further and further away from the goal. How can we heal like that in our own physical bodies without understanding the roots of why certain things are afflicting us? But instead of getting caught up in the war or battle within ourselves, we have to move towards the antidote. And to me, on the planet, the antidote is knowing that even if we have differences of opinion, the most important thing that we can work on is having mutual love and respect and kindness and maturity in the way that we handle all the issues coming at us. And if we don't have that as a foundational starting point, we're just going to continue in chaos, and we're going to be fed on by parasites.
That's amazing. And let me tell you, there's like a library of information behind what you said, because I kind of read between the lines. And when you were talking about this, even just the child trafficking, there's like a whole explanation behind that. Just almost everything you commented on. Let me go over, because we're going to get back into that into a little bit more detail in a few minutes. Let me go over to Patty and ask Patty. Patty, what's going on? And you've had a very unique perspective as a filmmaker and as a researcher yourself in this whole new age, movement, I would call it. What is your perception on what's going on, the light workers?
Well, my perception is based on being in the field 10 years ago, when, in my opinion, we had the elders. And there's something different about my generation and above than what we have in the field today. It's new, it's young, it's a lot of people that have read the books of the elders, rather than the elders representing what I remember, what I filmed. And I'm used to that. And so I miss it. But the field changed so much. What I'd like to say is that I really felt honored to be a speaker for all those years with the greats. And then I did move through the, shall we say, transformation. And I don't want to say it's better or worse, I just no longer resonate. So it's a different frequency. And my work has always been, which I didn't even know about, frequency, which is actually plasma, which is actually, everything is plasma. Now, what's plasma and why are we not talking about it? Why is it this #danger buzzword? Well, it's because it's actually the basis of everything. And so when we went through all those conversations about your thoughts create your reality, your thoughts, feelings, actions, all that early, in the 70s, Be Here Now, Now Be Here, that book that was the circle that, it's like, where do we begin? Where do we end? But the lucky thing is we're coming back to all that wisdom now at a higher frequency with more consciousness. And there's always going to be those entities that don't want people awakening, and we can focus on them and waste our day, or we can stick with how can I be the most aligned with grace and hooked into the earth like an acupuncture point goddess or god or male or female. And I don't talk God literally because I don't do religion. I don't want to start separation again. For me, it's about, I work with the earth. And when you go barefoot and when you sit there with a bunch of wildlife wrapped around you that's not scared of you, all of a sudden you realize, which is my life, you're living in a different frequency. So all those things that used to be really important to me 5 years ago, I could give a damn right now because I watched it transform into something that is no longer me. I changed. I don't want to say the field changed. Maybe I just didn't notice what it was. But I notice now that there's a change in me where I am looking for my next chapter. And that's one of the things that I wanted to really talk about with relationships of any kind and this ascension window. What people need to do is take personal responsibility. If you're in a relationship that sucks for months and all you do is fight, if you don't take responsibility now and say, I'm going to close this book, I'm going to end this chapter because I choose me, then you're going to linger in it forever. Business, relationships, anything that doesn't work, when you can see it repeatedly showing you in your face and you don't resonate, you can keep fighting, or you can say, wow, I'm going to take control of my life again. And that's what I'm doing. And I feel really good about it. And I think that when we do things out of integrity, there's some part of us that knows, I don't feel any of that guilt. I feel really good about the role I played in ufology from start to finish. I didn't come in as an actor or a wannabe. I grew up in LA. I had enough movie stars wrapped around my life that, I was never that impressed. But I'm impressed when people are brave and integral. And I think that that's what's coming out now, is we're really seeing the people that are going to lead us into the next. And I hope the three of us are a big part of that, because one famous statement I saw somebody make that was doing a lot of slanderous things against me, and I don't want to do names, was he said, that which is closest to the truth will be the most suppressed. And I thought that was so poignant because my experience in film has been so impressive. And I laugh that all of a sudden, my films are now exploding everywhere because, oops, they've been missing for a long time. And I'm not going to have a judgment. I'm just going to give the horse a little tap and keep the canter going, because somehow every day I wake up happy and my life is really fun. So what we need to do independently, each human, is to say, I don't care what these other entities are throwing at me. If I don't resonate, if it's not in my frequency, if it's not the energetics that I want my field, which is my plasma field, to send out in all directions, then I'm not interested. It's kind of like going to the grocery store and going, should I eat this can of pears or a fresh organic pear? Gosh, I think I'm going organic. So that's my decision now, and I think all of you should make a similar one.
Okay, a very important thing you just said was talking about plasma. Isn't this the missing link? Isn't this why we really never talked about plasma? Isn't this the missing link to manifesting into in the physical form? If we don't have plasma, we really can't we can't collectively manifest things in the physical. Laura, what can you tell us about this? Is this the missing link? I mean, what we have here is we've had humanity that's been hijacked by a dark group of beings who were cast down here as punishment. Oh, how lucky for us. And they've hijacked us through mass deception and through psychic warfare. They're trying to keep us from knowing the truth. So they keep us in a constant state of ignorance, and they keep us from knowing the truth of who and what we are, because they've destroyed our history. And they're really just in the business of farming us, basically, at this point, and depopulating us if their plans go according to their plans and wishes on their timeline. But it's because they're so deeply jealous of who and what we truly are, and that our own being, as you are both pointing to, we have such greater capacity to I'm sorry.
Wonderful.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, these agendas are all about hijacking the ascension timeline and also siphoning energy from us, draining our life force, basically, and even our kundalini. And that's why we see so many distortions between the masculine and feminine, and the way sexual energy is played out, and how some of these implants and some of these programs can really just hook in and actually create very inhospitable conditions within ourselves. You know, a lot of people have to do a lot of parasitic cleanses. They might feel a lot of interference coming in from their implants being extra loud because they're not being neutralized. Because anytime we buy into the program, or we aren't conserving our energy in the material world, and we're allowing our energy to spill out and leak because we're going into fear or anxiety because of what we're reading, or because we don't think we're doing it right, because somebody else is telling us what a spiritual path should look like. There's all these different mechanisms that are coming in at all angles in order to take our life force. And so the most important thing to realize is that during this ascension cycle, the human body is undergoing an alchemical process. It was very difficult for the alchemical process to be achieved up until around 2010, actually, when the hosting of the ascension timeline switched over to the goddess override frequency in the crystal star hosting from Andromeda, which represents the merging of the Milky Way and the Andromedan galactic core, which opens us up to our galactic chakras in the 7 higher heavens. And it actually corrects a lot of the reversals, particularly the dodecahedron platonic solid that represents the ether, which we need in order to achieve alchemy. So in this alchemical process, it generates internal plasma light. And that internal plasma light is what helps to build our light body. And when we're able to build our light body, the cells of our body changes, the whole physical vehicle changes and starts to move into the silicate matrix, or a crystalline embodiment. And so when we go into the galactic chakras, even when we get to the 8th and 9th, which represents the phase lock of Andromeda and Milky Way in our own energy body, which is what we have to realize, is that we are a replica of what's going on in the outside. But if we get distracted into the AI or artificial intelligence systems, then that energy is being siphoned into their agendas and their false imitation reality. So in this awakening to our galactic chakras, when we start to light up the 8th and 9th, it's actually an infinity spiral around our head. And it goes into the base skull, which is considered the mouth of God. And again, not the religious kind, but the one that puts us in that direct connect, where we are able to fill our physical body with divine light and generate it from our internal source. And that's plasma light. So that's very creative, miracle, vibration type energy. Without the old sort of definition of it, that's something that comes natural to us. So when we're able to do the alchemy, when we're able to transmute the programs, when we're able to transmute trauma into wisdom and just elevate ourselves and see everything as an opportunity to recognize that there's healing, transformation, awakening at our fingertips, versus the reversal codings that come through media and politics and religion that digresses us, we can begin to activate an infinity spiral and expand into our higher consciousness and advance our DNA to the diamond sun body, which is 12 strand and beyond. So these agendas have been seeking to hijack that because we're their food source. And as long as they can generate fear, anxiety, and we can or we give our power away to the things coming in from outside of us, then we're not containing our energy anymore, and we have energy leaks. It's even for people that have a lot of issues with giving their power away to partners, like Patty was talking about, you know, those toxic relationships, jobs that you don't like, friends that don't quite see you clearly that you still feel you need to relate to, family strife and battles and struggles. and anything that just pulls us outside of ourselves. Then all of a sudden that energy leaks and they're able to power up their technologies and have even more of a better chance of creating some new world order scenario. But we're in a sense enabling it by not staying in our true core center. So it's through this alchemy that we're experiencing that helps us to learn how to build our light body. And because the human body is capable of a biological ionization process, that's how this is all generated. And so if we look at turning lead into gold, this is the process of increasing the plasma light energy through having the electromagnetic spectrum spinning at a faster rate, which is the organic ascension signals that comes from us being authentic and connected to the earth, versus being externalized with everything else that is going to attempt to drain us and then digress us, while promoting a transhumanism agenda that makes us believe that we're moving into some sort of utopian society. But as we'll start to realize, only some benefit and others don't. That there's nothing about the transhumanism model that doesn't put some in a more privileged position with duality increasing. But that privileged position is only temporary, because AI and artificial intelligence destroys eventually all biological life. And that's why they time travel and gain genetic material to keep their life cycle alive, because the end of those timelines, or the trajectory of those timelines, doesn't lead to anything good. So they have to come back and recycle, and in the hopes that we're still giving our power away so they have something to use and utilize. And so some of these hybridization programs are geared towards that. So every human is an angelic human that has this DNA potential. And if we can't harness the energies, if we're always giving it away or allowing our creative energy to be infected by a propaganda or meme or imitation model of who we are, that's where we have to make decisions right now in every moment and choose what's organic, what's true, what's real. But the only way we can do that is by embodying our truth frequency, which means that even if we don't have all the answers, we're being true to ourselves. We're being transparent enough to not act out our wounds, but we're being mature enough to say, hey, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm working on. And if you're around loving and supportive people, they can begin to help you to see the beautiful potential that's in front of us, instead of feeling very trapped and isolated in how we're working out thousands of years of traumatic history that we've all been a part of.
Yeah, I mean, I think people, that was just so, oh my God, that was so prolific. I told you folks, these are very intelligent women. So just buckle your seatbelt. Patty, what do we say to the younger women today? And I want to talk specifically to those younger women who may or may not be watching this program, but you know, they'll watch eventually. I think that you and we've all grown up in a time before we had cell phones, okay? And, you know, I feel like I remember talking to my grandmother and how she, I don't hear that echo now, so I don't know, maybe something went better, but I couldn't imagine them growing up without television, or, you know, they had to use outhouses. It just seems so, you know, ancient, right? The kids today can't imagine, you know, not having these plasma devices, but it's terrible. I mean, I see my own daughters going to their friend's house and they sit there and they text each other on their phones. And I said, you're not even talking. Why are you here? You could have been doing this from home. It's like, it is, like you said, Laura, they're removing this human element. They're, you know, they don't even know how to interact anymore, and like how to, so you really have to, you know, take these devices away, as fun and entertaining as they are. But you can also see that this agenda over time was to break up the family and cause, you know, kids to kind of have to go to you know, going to the internet to find solutions and answers, because parents are working 2 jobs, 3 jobs. They're busy. People are so busy. This is the goldfish bowl, right? Everyone's in their goldfish bowl, so busy trying to take care of their own life that they don't really see all the picture around them and connect all the dots and see what's really happening. But Patty, how do you, what would the conversation be that you would have with a young woman today who you would think might need some guidance? And as a mom, you might have had that conversation already. I think you're on mute, Patty. You have to unmute. Hold on a second. We need to unmute Patty, and I don't know how she became muted, but let's.
Oops, that was
there we go.
me.
Okay.
I try and be quiet when everybody else is speaking. What would I tell young girls from what I've learned? Number 1, don't make movies by yourself. Number 2, don't go into ufology until things change. And number three, where's that wonderful thing that somebody said to me? It was a question that I was supposed to ask myself every day. You know, do you want to save the world or do you want to savor the world? And I think that's what's evolving in me now, is that I've closed a chapter on my faith in things that I used to believe in, because I'm choosing to really look at what is. And this is what I would say to young girls and young men and old girls and old men, is that instead of being in a place where our brain is so busy that when somebody says to us, that we only hear what we wanted them to say to us. And I think that happens a lot. It used to happen with me, where I would always think, oh, I can change them because they're so wrong about that. But, you know, what we need to do now is to turn the channel and we start listening, so that when people talk to us, we hear what they say and we don't spend our time preparing the answer back, but we actually keep listening until they put a period at the end of it. We're going to learn a whole lot more about the people that have been around us. And so it's an important time for young people especially to start really looking at who those saviors are, who their icons, their, you know, their heroes. Who are your heroes? And now start listening really to what they say, without having a lot of other things going on in your brain, and see if that's what you want. My conclusion is, today is the day to stop having a savior, to stop perhaps paying a therapist, to stop perhaps going to a religious organization where the children are no longer safe, to perhaps start taking responsibility for yourself. Start raising your own frequency. Start being really conscious about everything you eat, drink, and take in. As far as the information, the data, as far as the stones you wear, don't be wearing dirty crystals. Don't be wearing things that have been around people that are angry, perhaps. Start saying, how can I consciously change my energy field in my body? What can I do that doesn't have anything to do with a teacher or a therapist or my mommy or daddy or a leader or anything? What can I do all by myself? And that's where I want to go for people, because all of us are an inside job now. And it's taken me a long time to get this disciplined, but boy, do I discipline my thinking. And years ago, I used to wake up and choose from a whole bunch of different coffee cups, how to start my day. Do I want the funny cup? Do I want the sarcastic, you know, or this color? And now it's crystals, minerals. What do I want to wear today? What frequency do I want to be in? Today I'm wearing rose quartz and a rose quartz and a pearl to stay in my divine feminine, because I am working with these steel magnolia goddesses. And so we want to keep that reminder. As I put it on, I also set the intention, I'm wearing this because I'm choosing to be in my softness, in my frequency of kindness. And I'm wearing pink. I mean, I think about what I want to be today. And if I were going to an event like I used to do when I felt safe, I would wear moldavite. And I've got a big monster. This guy is what? I mean, you can see the size of my finger. This guy's about 2 inches each way. Moldavite, in my opinion, is one of those things I want to encourage everybody to have. And it's a tektite from outer space. It's one of the highest vibrating stones on Earth, because it's not of Earth, it's of space. And it fell into the Moldau Valley of Czechoslovakia. I've got it rigged on a rope with some seed pearls to balance out its energy. But if you guys decide, you know, what can I do for myself? Take yourself on a little tour of a crystal store and maybe ask for help, but maybe not. But if you want to do your own work and you want to get stones that work for you, I'm going to tell you quickly, because I did years of crystal training. Clap your hands, get the blood going, and rub your hands together, and now you're ready to hold some stones. And I can tell you right off the bat, there's a handful of really high vibrating stones. My library behind me has a lot of crystal healing books, but this is something that we can all do for ourselves, to sleep with rose quartz left and right of you. I, of course, am sleeping with a dozen really big magnets under my mattress, because my man, you know, we're build in the field, and so what we have to do is create our physical field to be something that's enhancing us personally. Now, a lot of people are writing me, oh, you must be so this and that, and I'm like, false evidence appearing real? Me? Like I'm going to waste my time on fear or anger or rage? I don't care if people are thinking I've got some edge or attitude. No, what I've got is a friggin' smile on my face, head to toe. I love my life. And even though things are coming at a lot of us, it's like I'm not choosing to spend my days grieving over the loss of something that I'm so glad to get rid of. So I'm encouraging all of you, if you have something in your life that doesn't work, close the book, put it down, and stop grieving. Stop fighting, stop sludging, get your feet out of the mud, and say, what can I do next? That's my best advice to young and old people. Close the book if it's not working and step forward.
And move on. Yeah, no, that's really very well articulated, Patty. Thank you. But what's funny is that, you said the first thing you said was not to film crop circles by yourself, but let me tell you that you and Laura may just be those heroes these women are looking for and looking toward, because if it wasn't for your tenacity and perseverance, Patty, we would have never found that clip showing that binary code between these two plasma orbs, laying down those, there you go, laying down those, that's it right there, those crop circles of, and so yeah, there's intelligence in plasma. Yeah. And plasma, aren't these crop circles showing us that the plasma can create form and manifest physically? Isn't that, part of the message of the crop circles?
Absolutely. But you misunderstood. I didn't say don't film crop circles alone. Are you kidding? Only film crop circles alone. Do not have people there distracting you.
Okay.
But I said don't make movies alone. Get people to thank you who have connections. That's what I meant to say, but I was trying not to talk business at all. But I do want to talk briefly about the plasma field and crop circles, because I think it's the most important thing. And it was never established until this movie, what I think was my final film, Crop Circle Diaries, where I got the real science. And the science has never been discussed. The crop circles really are created by plasma fields. What I learned in the movie, and I think the thing that perhaps is most threatening to those that don't want humanity moving into the new paradigm, is that Penny Kelly held up two hands and she said, here, I've got a glass of milk. It's a glass with milk in it. And if I can learn to measure the plasma of the glass and measure the plasma of the milk within it, then I can recreate it over here. So if we can measure plasma, which is a science, and we figured it out, then we can manipulate it and then we can recreate it. But Penny said the problem will be if we spin the plasma field in the opposite direction, we can destroy matter. And so if this technology got into the wrong hands, it would be a real problem. This right here is the whole paradigm stuck problem with the plasma field sciences, is that those that know that there's these sacred geometries that when you spin the Merkaba, like Laura was saying, and she and I are speaking in the same, we're both in the same place, which is, you know what's going on, you're really trying to help people get it, and we're both doing it in a different way, but it is the same message. It's time to move on, and it's time to not let anybody reverse the spin of that Merkaba, of that plasma field, and take away matter. And that's what we're up against now, I think, with these secret directed energy weapons. I think it's a reversal of that beautiful manifestation of the plasma field. It's the deconstruction, which we don't want.
Well, thanks, Patty. That was amazing, and I think you hit on a very good point. Laura, isn't this the knowledge, the technology that was given to the Atlanteans that they misused and caused their downfall? This is the secret. I mean, this is what we're talking about here, is this manipulation of the plasma field and what we can do with it. Isn't this why they're going through all this trouble to hijack humanity? Because we've had so many treaties that it doesn't seem like anybody, I don't know if there's anyone to and hold them accountable for treaties. It's like, how many treaties can we have? What do you think about that, Laura?
Yeah, how many treaties can we have? I mean, there's the Emerald Covenant treaties, the Paladorian, I think I'm saying that right. That was basically to help make sure that we would ascend, and it was a very benevolent treaty. And some things got a little bit messed up with all of that. And then, of course, there's ET government treaties that aren't so positive either. And there's a lot of manipulation. There's a lot of, there's things that didn't end up holding true to what the treaty was all about. So they're almost like irrelevant. It's almost like, I mean, look at our Constitution. I mean, is that even something that was supposed to hold some weight in the world? And whatever's been written and decided upon is more for the outer facade, because the NSA or these three-letter organizations always have some sort of background thing going on, and what's on the more surface world stage is a lot different. Then you have sort of the in between, which is still the stuff that's been in secrecy, but it's not necessarily coming from the NSA. It might be a group of government officials, even like Eisenhower, who was up against ET government treaties, but he didn't sign the ones that the blue unit of the NSA did in regards to mind control and some of the things related to Project Paperclip that was ensuring that this negative alien agenda would move into the United States and begin to infiltrate it. The surface agenda was very much about saving our dying race. We will only do this and we'll give you this in return. And it was the end of the Second World War. And they couldn't make a decision with the Nordics, and they were deliberating about it. And before they were able to make a decision, this other group had come in, and they realized that it wasn't even a treaty anymore. They considered it a surrender. So this sort of in-between place that was still kept in secrecy considered it a surrender because they realized that they hadn't really conquered the Nazis. They only won a certain portion of the war. But behind that was this whole other treaty from the NSA that is the one that's been so detrimental. So there's, many, many layers, and there's a lot of compartmentalism. And then us as humans, we don't even hear any of that. We're getting false history. We're, noticing UFOs. We hear whistleblowers. We, originally heard from people like Phil Schneider or William Cooper, sort of getting an idea of all this, things like Roswell, but we don't realize the deeper timeline manipulation that's been going on for a long time. That's just been, holding these human hybrids, or the ones in agreement to it, like shuffling them into these three-letter organizations, and then MJ12, and then all these different institutions or think tanks that have been making decisions about the alien technology that was bartered. And originally, some of it was being presented as medical breakthroughs and things that could actually help humanity. And that, again, was the treaty that got broken. The one that didn't got broken was the one with the NSA that is all about, geoengineering, mind control, implants, the New World Order agenda, the infiltration of the secret space program. So when we learn about the ET government treaties, if we don't see a layer behind the layer, we're going to, be stuck on a particular storyline that doesn't show the full picture. And through my research over, decades, I started at one layer. Then I was like, wait a second, I think there's more to it. And then, oh my gosh, okay, the Greer Treaty actually originated with Hitler, Crowley, and Churchill. And if anybody wants to find out my sources, you can message me later. But and they're renewed every 10 years. But again, they have sort of scapegoats or sort of these false narratives, just like they did with the Mars recruitment, convincing those that are making those deals or engaging in it, whether it's surrender or making some kind of agreement. This particular one with Eisenhower was considered a surrender. But just like the Mars recruitment that I went through, a lot of well-intentioned people thought they were doing something good for the planet. But when you go behind layer and, deeper into what it's all about, you've got these ringleaders that are putting things in a certain place so that they can take advantage of well-intentioned people. And then they all of a sudden wake up and realize they're serving the dark side, which is what happened with Phil Schneider and a bunch of other whistleblowers. They felt really that patriotism, or we're protecting our country, and this is all for the defense of our country. And then they realize, wait a second, there's a dark negative alien agenda that I'm serving. Oh my gosh. And so they attempt to blow the whistle and they're offed. So the treaties don't even really matter anymore. What it's come down to is it's up to the people. It's up to the people to recognize who and what we really are and what we're made of, and what it means to connect with our own internal codes, the light codes that are coming in, both from the core of the earth, which is plasma, and above. 99% of everything has that plasmic energy. So when we're talking about how the Atlanteans misuse the power, as long as they can create those reversals, that plasma energy becomes theirs, and that's such enough power to be able to guide and steer things into even a whole timeline that has nothing to do with who we naturally and innately are. And that's why they manipulated our connection with the ether. And when the sun moved into the 13th sign of Fiacus, that's the only astrological sign that's ruled by the ether. Every other astrological sign is ruled by earth, air, fire, water. So in 2010, when the sun started moving into Ophiuchus, then all of a sudden our capacity to open up to the ether is now available. And if we can tap into that, there's nothing but thriving, blossoming, healing, transforming, regenerating, versus the reversals, which is physical matter holds dominion over consciousness. Now it's consciousness holds dominion over physical matter. That's always been the true natural and cosmic law. And we got taught that that wasn't the case. That's why we see disease, degradation of the environment. What the earth has been going through is very similar to us, where we see ailments and, blood disorders and cancers, and where our physical body is degrading, our emotional body is getting contaminated. And that's what depression is. Our fire element has turned to anger and rage. And our mind and our clarity is turned into mind control. So that's what the reversals have done. Now that we're breaking through it all, regardless of treaties, regardless of the manipulations 26,000 years ago, when those technologies were put in place to mess with the earth grids, to create those reversals, we're neutralizing all that dark technology just by the frequency and consciousness alone, which Patty mentioned in the beginning. So even though that all sounds complex, how do we put it in practical terms? Like she said, integrity, nurturing relationship with yourself, treating yourself in the way that you truly deserve, letting go of those toxic relationships. And those simple things alone are winning the war, because we have to win the war of consciousness within ourselves, which means that we don't plug into those dangerous areas anymore. We don't buy into the BS, and we do our best to heal our self-esteem, because I think that's what's taken the biggest hit. That's why we give our power away. We feel less than, we feel unworthy. We want validation. We want to attach to something that makes us feel good, or even attach to something that makes us fearful, because at least it's attaching to something. Because the last thing we want to attach to is the goodness and truth of who we are, because we've been taught to fear it. So it does take going into some dark layers of the self to release ourselves from programmings, ancestral patterns, toxicity, because that's all addictive stuff. Even if it's negative, it's addictive. So if we can just be willing to do that and embrace the process as a humanity and hold hands together, instead of all this bickering and war and conflict, which I can't believe people are doing that claim to be higher consciousness beings, then, the plasma light fields in our body are connecting like electronics, but without the electronic distortions, right? It's the unity field. It's that oneness that we can appreciate each other's diversity, and we can find harmony in that diversity, and we can come together in unity. If people don't start bickering and fighting and insulting, I just go crazy. I'm like, how can you guys not realize the level of pollution that brings into the energy field? It's not just about, we keep thinking everything's based on physical law. Think about, just the words we speak. We can heal somebody with our words, and we can destroy them. So if we don't learn how to communicate, because that's our throat chakra, that's where the alchemy is. If we don't learn the power of our words and how it affects others, and we don't take responsibility for that, then we're not going to get anywhere. So besides all those complexities that we discussed, the simplicity of it all is purify your throat chakra, if anything. Be a sound healing technology with the beautiful voice print that you can generate into the environment to uplift souls, and forget all this political BS, because it's only designed to conquer and divide. Let's just get the crimes against humanity looked at, and then let's figure out the politics. But that's the priority right now, because that's the darkest thing going on, is that the children are targeted. There's lots of mind-controlled adults walking around. And we have to know that when we shift from the inside out, the earth responds to us. When we purify our internal elements through purifying our negative ego, the world around us is going to get cleaner, purer, and more beautiful. And each one of us has a responsibility to take on that task.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm just, again, so honored and amazed at the information that you have. It's kind of like when we discover the power of who and what we are, we can change collectively. I love the comment about pollution, like electronic or spiritual pollution. You can probably see it in people's auras or auric fields. Then we can transform this planet. We can change the atmosphere on the planet. But people don't need to go to a church or a temple, do they? Any person is their own priest of their own inner temple, and presiding over the most sacred of rites, which is our own life. And so if we do go in, as Patty's saying, and as Laura's saying, go in and, dwell within, the minister over your own life, so to speak, because the problem isn't with religion, but it's with the religious. Isn't that right? Because people are lost, and they're stuck on this dogma of religion until we are allowed to know the truth of our history and who and what we are and who these people really were and what their missions really were here. So changing because that's the problem. The problem is, if we have the church, we have this middleman between ourselves and our creator. And as long as there's a middleman, then we don't understand who we are, and that we can go within and have the power to do that. Do you have any comments on that? I'm going to ask both of you the same question. Go ahead, Laura.
I do.
All right. Well, Patty, you go then next. I was going to go to you next, but it's okay. Just go ahead.
I watched you do the perfect thing, the power, and you looked up. I think what changed for me after 6 movies and 6 awards for them, and I thought, oh boy, do I know crop circles. I knew nothing. I thought, like you did, that our source is up there. And what I learned is that the source of crop circles is the earth herself, not the alien race, and let's fight over which race. No, it's not some alien race in the earth. It's not the inner core of fire and heat. It's the earth herself. It's the divine mother. It's what this show is about. It's quitting doing this and finally doing this, looking down to our base, our mother, the true living being, which is the earth, the planet herself. What are crop circles really? They're a tool for the earth, the water, occasionally humans, occasionally other dimensionals, to co-communicate. But it's always the earth and it's always water. How do I was going to say guess this, but I guessed for 6 movies. By my 8th film, Crop Circle Diaries, I learned from the scientists that had studied all of these thousands and thousands of bits of wheat and corn and barley that crop circles are coming out of the earth and counter-rotating, rotating in the opposite direction, vortices, a vortex, 2 of them, of spinning plasma fields. But it's not just a spinning plasma field from the earth, it's a vortex, 2 of them, with different layers of frequencies. How do we know? Well, they measured, and they measured thousands, and it kept turning up the same, that certain crop circles were definitely earth and water energies. How do I know water? Because 97% of the crop circles documented around the world were sitting over an aquifer of water. Why Wiltshire? Well, it's an island basically sitting over an aquifer. The other 96.7 percentile of where crop circles are located, they're always on a ley line, a direct line between 2 sacred sites. What's that about? Ooh, there goes the plasma field. A high, sacred plasma field, not cement, honking, ambulances, no. Places where there are sacred sites. And then you look at a map and you draw lines between the churches and the mounds and the stone circles and the monuments of where people, the Druid, have crossed Europe for thousands of years. Well, why are they all over there and not in the cement zones? Probably because the frequency is higher and there's the water to work with. So what we learned in movie number 8, that actually I'll say, even though nobody's heard of it, Crop Circle Diaries, it won the best film last year at the International UFO Congress Convention. I received not only the best film, but the People's Choice Award. What a gift in 2017 that all those intelligent ufologists voted, oh my God, Crop Circle Diaries, I finally learned what crop circles are. I mean, aside from the ones that humans make, but in this movie, I even found a crop circle that humans made for the mother herself. And how do I know? I met a group of 6 women that were in the Avery Stone Circle the day before, discussing their free energy device, asking the earth to give them a confirmation. And the next day I met those people in a human-made crop circle. How do I know? The nodes were broken, not bent. They were broken. So we know that it was made by humans with boards and ropes. On the other hand, when the woman held up a photo of their free energy device and a photo of the crop circle we were in from the air, that crop circle was an exact, not exact, but very, very close schematic of that free energy device. And what I knew, and I'm standing there with Sasha Stone and cameras going, and we're both going, oh God, it's a human-made crop circle. But then these women said on camera, no, this is ours. We prayed for it. It's here. Here's 2 photos. And I was like, holy crap. So even human-made crop circles, I learned, can and are occasionally real when the human consciousness is in those frequencies. Wow.
I'm
So
going to screen share this so you can explain what you're talking about here, because they are bent and not broken. And of course, you also said that the yield was much greater in this, the fields of this wheat were far greater than had they not been in other fields. So you want to explain that?
oh God, you're just showing me so many magical memories. As I look at every photo, I'm just in heaven. Stonehenge is in the background to the left. And there were thousands of people that day. Thousands of people at Stonehenge, broad daylight. The pilot flies over. There's no crop circle. He's got a scientist. They're doing schematics on Stonehenge. They turn the plane around. They head back the same location, right across the highway. There's the Fibonacci sequence. And the Fibonacci sequence is sacred geometry, broad daylight, within 15 minutes, that showed up. And friends of mine ran across the street from Stonehenge. They had to hike quite a ways, but some pilot had radioed into the tour people that there's a new crop circle, and it happened in broad daylight. So, you know, the stuff that I've had to deal with trying to hide crop circles, you know, it's kind of like trying to hide the truth about anything. But what we have here is physical, biophysical evidence when you have a real crop circle compared to a human-made where the wheat is broken. Instead, you've got these bends where the wheat was exploded by some form of heat, or an elongated node, which is where it bends, where it's elongated with a burn hole where the steam came out. There's so much biophysical evidence that it's pretty remarkable that they've gotten away with hiding the information this long. But, you know, you can only do so much. And I didn't go there because I had studied anything about crop circles with any of the, shall I say, pre-programmed researchers that were probably going to misinform me. Instead, I went over there myself. Now, the bottom right corner, oh, you just went to a new, well, I mean, they're all so fabulous. Here we go. I mean, so the bottom row, third one over, is the schematic for the free energy device called the QEG.
I'm circling it. Can you see the mouse over there? Is that the one you're talking about? Okay.
Yes.
It's for our viewers.
It's really interesting on the inside. And I think what's fascinating about that was that it was made by humans, but it was a real crop circle because it was an answer to a group of people that were asking the earth to speak with them. So I think this is going to be a huge evolution for humanity when we can start realizing that the gods and, you know, everything that we think is up there is perhaps really the creator of all, which is Mother Earth. And I think that when we can start acknowledging Mother Earth, then we're going to realize why the mother, all the words that we use for the earth that have been used in vain, you know, all these things, even like the rainbow is being used in vain. So all these beautiful things that we've known for all of life are being turned to say something else to us. This image that you pulled up, and all of these are from my website, which is cropcirclefilms.com. Every single one here is a story. And the two upper right hand, in 2009, the whole summer was birds, fish, and insects. And you can see the rising phoenix. Look at the flames. That's in waving barley. Look at the amazing detail in her base tail. All those teeny little lines, when you walk through, you're on your tiptoes. You're walking sideways. I mean, every single line that you see, you're in an airplane right now looking down on this crop circle. But why 2009 was there no sacred geometry, no mathematics, no binary codes? It was birds, fish, and insects. What was the message that the mother was giving us? Well, guess what happened in the spring? The BP oil spill. How many millions of birds, fish, and insects died? What do I think? Yeah, I think she was trying to tell us, beware, please awaken. You're doing things wrong. And the water's going, help, help, you know? So now you've got the earth and the water yelling with birds, fish, and bugs the whole summer, bugs, insects. But they didn't do recent small, they did the ancient scarab crop circle. They did the ancient rising phoenix. They did the thunderbird to remind us of Nazca. Oh, yeah. So all these clues to get us to wake the heck up are coming from the earth herself. Occasionally us, occasionally other dimensionals, but always the earth and always the water. Plasma.
It's really amazing because you're saying it's all about frequency, and we've talked about this in our previous interview, certainly over the aquifers and things of that nature, which would create that resonance. And you're a musician, I'm a musician, so we get that. And for people, and Laura, now Laura, this one of them looked like that symbol of the Anunnaki. What do we know about the Anunnaki, Laura? That did they mess up? Are they coming back? Are they going to fix the problem? Do we have this Andromeda Council? It's supposed to be the Council of Nine. Who's weighing in on this? If this is supposed to be our school, and we're supposed to be children rather than guinea pigs in a laboratory, who's watching the children and making sure we're not, because the hijacking of humanity is just so against, I think, our soul. I think we could create enough problems for our soul to grow on our own here on the planet as it is. But I think in general, human beings are very peaceful, loving beings. I don't really think we should be spiritually raped as we have been. And so who are the guardians of the galaxy, so to speak? And is there, to the research you've done, what do you think, who's accountable in the end? What do you think?
Well, I mean, there's guardian founder races that are considered the Orifim. The Orifim consciousness holds three founder flame energies, which are violet, gold, and blue. The blue ray, the magenta ray, and the gold ray. And they're basically considered the frequencies of the Trinity when we look at Mother, Father, and I guess just to put it in the most balanced way, the Christ Sophia child. This is a part of our blueprint. This is a part of what our DNA can connect with. And so there's a lot of individuals amongst us, about 500,000 on the planet, that are waking up to their Orifim consciousness. They are able to step down and hold a human imprint in this physical density while not losing connection with their mission. And the mission really is to activate other humans, which are all angelic humans, basically. But when it comes down to it, you have, when we look at all these different species, I like to just put it down to two. You're either, out for yourself and exploiting humanity, or you're here to unify and work together as a cosmic family, earth family, with direct connection with the mother, who's really the most benevolent force, I feel. Because in our DNA, every 3 strands, we move into a different harmonic universe. So we have the capacity to awaken our avatar consciousness, which is like the 4th harmonic universe. And then from there, we connect in with the 13th gate, which is the core of the planet, which is the mother that's returned to the planet, that was not able to be in the planet because these dark reversals and the cataclysms got so bad that it was difficult for that energy to be even grounded in the physical planet. Before, it wasn't interacting so much when we were in these higher dimensions, but it became a necessity to make sure that souls would know how to come home and not be led astray and hybridize to the point of no return. So the conditions of this planet have been that the mother energy morphs into the physical planet as plasma, and the dark technologies that some of the Anunnaki, some of the dark factions have utilized are the plasma scalar weapons, and how that connects with mind control. But the positive plasma energies that have a technological base can't be used in a negative way if they're given to the wrong people, because they're in a whole other dimensional level that they can't access. Similar to the goddess, there's things about the goddess frequency which exists within men and women, but I'm talking mostly about the planetary consciousness that we're all one with. There's levels of that these control groups cannot access. So as long as we can reach that frequency, then we're out of the grips and we don't have the vulnerability of being compromised anymore. So the guardian founders are actually walking amongst us. I would say Anunnaki are walking amongst us. To me, we carry in our full DNA makeup all these different experiences that we've had in past lives. So when we start to switch on strands, we might find that we're remembering something in our galactic history where we might have begun to digress and maybe became a fallen entity, or we became trapped somehow, or we got compromised somehow. So as we switch this stuff back on, we're all going to have our own unique path as far as what we've experienced. The whole point is that we can move forward despite what happened. But I think we're all responsible in some way to the world that we live in, because we don't, always know the roles that we played in the past. Even though we might be doing great now, we might have played a role in the past that led to what we're doing today. And we might find that if we're very compromised, or we feel very drained, that we might have been avatar masters in the past. I think we've been many, many different things, but we're consolidating all these different lifetimes to switch it all on, create the alchemy, and put the highest part of ourselves in the driver's seat. Everything else can be a part of the soul architecture, but we get to decide who's going to drive the vehicle and who's in charge. So to me, we might have remnants of an Anunnaki lifetime or an experience with that control agenda. Maybe we were in agreement to it, maybe we were not. But as that comes up in us, it's going to show in the way we treat others. I mean, we can have partners that are narcissistic or control freaks that might be holding an old energy where in that lifetime they exercise that. And that was just an aspect of who they are, but they have the opportunity to heal it. So I would say that there are some powerful activators that are on the planet. And I'm not saying that we've lived, the darkest of lifetimes as much as the highest of lifetimes, but unity consciousness is pulling all those pieces together so that we can, integrate all these fragments and put them into oneness again, because fragmentation causes all this feeding to happen. I would say the guardian founder races, the cetaceans, the dolphins, things that we see in our natural world, the vibration of those creatures and our connection with higher aspects of ourself that will help to link us with maybe councils or star systems we once were a part of, will help us to awaken, which is different than not being in charge of ourselves and having some control or agenda decide, well, they don't know what they're doing, so we're going to have to take over. But at the same time, we have ones that have set us up for this because all the manipulation has to do with us forgetting who we are. So it's kind of like, well, if this group put them to sleep, then we're going to have to help them get over here. And at the end of the day, can't we consolidate all of this and begin to switch on all these different aspects and recognize that all the guardians are really walking amongst us? And when we activate that, we lift the veil and we start to notice the larger cosmic family, and we're greeting them more as allies, more as friends, instead of we need you to save us, or we need you to control us because we're not in control of ourselves and we've lost our soul essence. So the thing is with the dark agendas, even though it's very difficult to counteract the effects of all that they've been doing to us, we have to remember that everything is frequency, and even pollution holds a frequency. And if we start to fall into that frequency of pollution, just like walking into a room of really dark people, and we begin to match it, then everything else can make it more difficult. But if we can hold and contain our energy to be that high vibration, and we invite other people to match us, that's no different than what a benevolent group or a benevolent force that's trying to help us is doing. That it's inviting us to match it like a tuning fork rather than doing it for us. It just invites us to make the free will choice to be in alignment with it. So we have a full range of higher vibrational frequencies that we can connect with. And, the positive plasma technologies that related to things like the sacred geometries, pyramids, and crystals, and even the crystal generators that are part of the earth grids, we can realign with them and knock out the false matrix program. So if enough numbers of us do that, then the general vibration of the planet is benevolent enough to help people recover from mind control. And in doing that, the natural effect of removing the mind control is that we begin to expand, and then we can see and notice that these other beings are aspects of ourself to a certain degree. They might vibrate at a similar color that we're vibrating at. They might have separate form and identity, but at the same time, they're a part of a frequency band in our consciousness that's just as much a part of us. So anything that's really helping us is inviting us to match it, recognizing that we're made of it too. Anything that's compromising us is where we're still struggling with the programmings, with a low sense of self or what our potential is, or a complete and total unknowingness of what's been done in our history to get us to this place where we think that this is just being human, that what we're dealing with on the planet right now and the density that we're vibrating at and the potential that we're seeking is really all there is. Is technology in an AI way the only answer? No, we're the most advanced technology. So I would say there's guardian founder races that we can't see. There's orbs, there's sphere beings, there's things that just are a vibrational color that might come into our field if we need help, similar to the immune system. But we have to have a part of our consciousness that's willing to see it and willing to evoke it, right? So when we're sick, if we're moving in a direction that makes us even sicker, then our immune system shuts down even more. But if we're sick and we say, okay, I know there's a force within me that can raise my vibration and heal me and transform me, then I'm going to be okay, right? So on a spiritual level, it's the same thing. If we can align our thoughts, no matter what kind of attack we're going through, no matter what sort of difficult adversity we're going through, and recognize the benevolence of the cosmos, the benevolence within ourselves, the life force of this planetary body, which is our mother, who's here to nurture us unconditionally, which I think is the most benevolent being of all that's here for us, then we're going to begin to turn all that around and transmute it. If we further digress because we're afraid of our symptoms, or we're afraid of the trajectory that we're being taught the human race is going to go down through those Armageddon kind of movies, or false alien invasion and all this fear stuff, and we begin to step away from what's real, then we're really hooked into something dangerous. So in every moment, we have a choice to take that adversity, take those symptoms, and have it draw us closer to ourselves instead of further away. Because the programming is going to teach us, oh, you're sick. Oh, you have an affliction. Oh, you need this drug. Oh, this is what this means, and you're going to be dead in 10 years, or you're going to need this in order to be okay. And if we can turn in the direction of all the herbs, all the frequencies coming from plants and animals, the highest levels of our dimensional consciousness that we can tap into, there's nothing that can't be healed. So there's different groups that represent different aspects of this whole experience. Ones that are the dark catalyst, or the controllers or enslavers, but they can help us to wake up at the same time if we can utilize their presence in a positive way. And then we have the ones that I feel represent the cosmic or earthly immune system that enhance our vibration and help us to see how to turn it all around. But this is all something that lights up something within us, because it all is something we already hold in us. We might have different storylines, but the resources of dimensional levels and frequencies, we all have the same. So do the earth grids, which represent our DNA, and the chakras, which represents our chakra system on a creational multidimensional level. So the choices we make tend to attract the things outside of us. And sometimes when we need help, we can call upon guides and things. It doesn't mean they're saving us, but it means that the benevolent ones are inviting us to match that frequency so we can begin to light up what already is within us. The only thing that's dangerous is if we say, please do it for me. And then we're basically not standing in our power. Part of standing in our power is not being afraid of our dark. Our dark is the soil, it's the womb. It's what takes the seeds of our highest consciousness to produce higher realities. And if we don't merge light and dark, then we're always either seeking saviors or getting caught in entrapment and feeling like the victim. If we can integrate those forces within ourselves, then we're sovereign, and we can begin to recognize that not only are we not alone, but we're seeing more sides of ourself. It's not alien, it's just other aspects of ourself that we haven't been able to be in touch with for quite some time. So what's the most natural thing feels the most unfamiliar. And we just have to, be willing to get out of the zoo cage and go back to our natural habitat without fearing it.
Well, isn't it also a matter of, okay, so we have seven bodies, not just our physical body. Is that correct, Laura? Or is it 9?
I mean, I think the numbers can continue to expand. I mean, it's a 15-dimensional time matrix, supposedly. We have the 7 chakra system, but really we have way more chakras than that. But if we look at like senses, there's more than 5 senses. If we look at like energy bodies, I would say that it's safe that we just look at 7 for now.
Okay.
But numbers always tend to grow because we're in an infinite experience here. But I would say 7 to 9 is safe to say. Plus, that's taking us into the monadic integration, which is the next step for humanity anyway. And I think that's all we can perceive, even on an advanced level in this current density that we're in.
Right.
And then we move to the next level, right?
It's relative to density. Exactly. That was a good point, because the importance of opening these chakras, isn't it to access these different these different bodies, because all the chakras combined equal white, which would give you your light body. So is there, in following that kind of thinking, it's about being a physical body, and then having your intuition, having your intellect, having all these other sensory perceptions, meaning that we're multidimensional. So once we can activate our chakras, don't we have better access to this multidimensional source of information that's coming to us, because we're not only hearing it, we're not only seeing it, we're not only, you know, feeling it, we're sensing it in our intuition. We have knowledge in our you know, as in terms of facts and information. So we have knowledge in our head, and we're trying to make sense out of a multidimensional world, and we're being told we're just, you know, these sappy little humans who have to go through priests in order to access your high, you know, I mean, it's really such a, you know what I'm saying?
Well, that's the thing. It's like, I mean, to me, the real church, and the thing is, if people bring it back to the earth, they'll say, oh, that's just paganism. It's like, this is not about running around in the woods and necessarily doing a freaking ritual here or a ceremony necessarily at all. It's about saying, what is there better to commune with and respect as sacred and honoring yourself as sacred than appreciating the earth we walk on, the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food in abundance that's available to us? What is wrong with being completely and totally in service to that? And it doesn't have to be about a religion or about some sort of way some certain group plays that out. It's about, what is your relationship to it and what works for you? Is it just a hike? Is it walking barefoot? Is it sitting out, you know, side against a tree? Maybe it's all of that. Is it making sure that you have clean food and water? I mean, how can we honor the mother? And, you know, we have to honor ourselves. True self-love is going to reflect a true appreciation for the earth that we're born on. I mean, what better to recognize as a church than the thing that gives us oxygen to breathe? And so these middlemen are basically saying, this is how it needs to be done. This is what God is. But, you know, God and Goddess are one. So it's a full multidimensional picture of everything that represents sacred union and balance. And so just going back to what you said before, though, can you just...
The temple, I mean, we're, the kingdom of heaven is within. Is that what you were going to... Go ahead.
Yeah. It's just,
okay.
You know, some other point you made, but...
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was the middleman, but there is just something there, but I can kind of let it go. Oh, okay. So the chakras, you know, when we, you know, switch them on, it's just, it's an energy circulation thing. And so it changes the nature of everything around us to be able to switch those on. And it's really our capacity to upgrade our DNA and see that larger picture that, you know, enables, you know, us to work some real magic into the world. And we can't do that through conflict and duality. And so, yeah, I think I'll probably be able to go back to it, but I did have a thought, but if I think of it, I'll say it again. But yeah, it's really, you know, important that people just know what they're made of. Nobody needs a middleman. Everybody has their own relationship to everything. And it's just as simple as that. And I don't think people can embrace simplicity, because the tree of knowledge, which is symbolic of our DNA, got targeted with mind control. So on our path towards knowledge, we got confused and we ended up thinking it was outside knowledge. We need to learn something outside of ourselves. To a certain degree, yes, because history's been rewritten and we've been given a lot of crap. But true knowledge, if we're really going to take on that path of knowledge and agree to this duality that we've been in for the sake of learning the right use of power, what is real knowledge? Self-knowledge, knowing what you're made of, knowing when your body has symptoms that it's sending you a message to help heal you, not cause you digression. We've been taught to digress, though, because we fear it. And, you know, if we can just embrace knowledge as self-knowledge, then we can move beyond the information and what we're sorting out, which has been how it's been for years and years. And we can move into embodiment, because once we gain enough self-knowledge, we don't have to think so much anymore. We can just be in essence. And that's what the next phase of this ascension cycle is about, is embodiment.
This isn't just for women, though. This is wisdom. This is wisdom for men as well.
There's so many integrated divine masculines. And really it's about, real quick, I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's okay.
When the feminine can embody the masculine just as much as the masculine can appreciate the feminine within the self, then we're not in these power struggles with each other anymore. We have compassion and greater understanding. But I just had to throw that in.
No, it's great. And Patty, you know, you talk about laying in the crop circles, you know, reconnecting to the earth is so important. And I think Laura said that, Patty said that. And Patty, your experience with laying in those crop circles and connecting with Mother Earth in a way that most people haven't. If you haven't been to a crop circle, which I haven't, then you really don't understand, which I don't, but Patty does. So it's like, how important is it to ground? And why, I mean, we're not just talking to women here. Steel magnolias, how often is it that in how many cultures on this planet and civilizations on this planet look to the women for wisdom and guidance? I think the native Indian tribes, actually, the men consult with the elder woman of the tribe. And so this information is for men too. This is not to exclude men in any way, but men, you know, need to come and need to listen to the wisdom of the women in order to feel, you know, to understand just as much as we need to understand. Don't you agree, Patty?
Absolutely. And you keep triggering that word listen. And I think that that's the secret of how I made 8 movies with no research. And the truth is, no research. Had I done research, I would have had misinforming films like most of the others that, need to do that. But my films were organically made in the crop circles with people that I saw day after day after day, year after year. Those are the people I interview, not the, it's the people that have mud on their boots like I do, lots of mud. So what my secret was that I learned to listen. What William Levengood, the great scientist in the lab that discovered crop circles were actually made from plasma spinning fields, was that he learned to listen. And it's listening to that intuitive psychic voice that you both have been referring to. That's the new trick and the new paradigm, in my opinion, is knowing the difference between crazy thoughts and that little voice that's really helping you hear. And all of us get clues, but we forget. We get these amazing gifts from our source herself, or whatever you want to call your source, but we get these gifts constantly. They're being put in our mind to do this, to go there, to see this, to grab your camera, to hurry up and get outside. And half the time you go, oh, I'd rather make a phone call, or, but if we can start listening to that little inner voice more often, that conscious little voice, you're going to blow yourself away with what you can do. I made all these movies through that little voice. I knew nothing about crop circles, but I did know when it was time to get up and get to the research center. And then the most amazing people were there. And then there was a new crop circle. But everything I did was through intuition, even editing. Don't ask me how I'm editing some of my films. And no, I'm not an expert. I'm not Disney. But I did attract the Disney artist who said, let me make you this cover for free. He's done 120 Disney books. I mean, what happens when you start working in the new frequencies is you attract the others that are working in that frequency. I love both of you. I think that it's such a great honor that women are finally just not waiting to be invited on the man shows or the women shows, but we're just showing up and we're creating this, which is an opportunity to help heal a lot of people. You mentioned another word. Oh, so the secret of listening to that little voice. William Levengood changed history. Of course, they suppressed him too. But he had a packet of seeds as he was cleaning his desk one day. And he saw this little envelope and he opened it up and there were these shriveled seeds. And, they're like proper seedsmen would do anything. And he's throwing them away. And he said, that little voice said, don't do that. So he literally went back in the trash and grabbed the little envelope. And that little voice said, stick them in the germination paper, put them in the germination tank. And they grew like gangbusters. And then he discovered that crop circle seeds were growing 30 to 400% more food and biofuel per plant with up to 75% more nutrition per seed. Had he not listened to that voice, it would have been in the trash can. He would have never discovered that the seeds inside crop circles will grow when conditions are too hot, too cold, too wet, too dry. Son of a gun. And it was the shriveled seeds that had no light, no love, no talking to, not that we talk to seeds, but sometimes the farmers do. In other words, those seeds needed to be neglected for the magic to happen. How did he know to do that? That little voice. How did I make 8 films in 10 years by myself? That little voice. And it's not like I have very many of my old friends. They get kind of scared of things like this. People that have, the willingness to listen to a little voice and do things that they would never do. But I think one of my more interesting experiences was starting to look at orbs. Now, orbs are one of the things that people absolutely love to make fun of. And I've got, I only have 2 haters that I know of, but I've got a new hater, and he's hating on orbs. And his videos are like, fake orb, Betty Greer, she sucks, she's a liar. And like, why would people be so scared of this? Well, probably because it's plasma, it's everywhere, it's all around you. And a lot of times when, all of a sudden you feel this weird energetic thing, perhaps it's entities from another world or your past that are coming in and giving you a little tweak, you know, because you're inappropriate or you're, you know, and they're still kind of hanging. And people want to make fun. It's a really interesting thing. The only thing I've seen people mock about my work is orbs. And that's fine. I don't care what people mock. If you're not ready for it,
Right.
or if you think it's a bunch of, what they say, dust on a camera lens is the best one. It's kind of like every crop circle is made by humans. It's like, I used to care about those people. Now I just have to honor and say, I've got other things to do with my energy field today. I used to go to battle like, oh, God bless you, Laura, on Faceplant. That girl, I don't know how she posts so much, so long, so loving. And then there are these people that are just whacking the tomatoes, and then they're throwing hearts and love and cupcakes. And then there's a couple of people showing up going, fake, fake, fake. And then they're throwing tomatoes. But she just keeps going, catch, catch. And she puts them in the trash rather than fighting back. To me, this is the defined feminine grace in action. We are at a time when, thank God, most people are really conscious with their responses to my videos and my films, but there's always going to be the scared ones that just aren't ready for the information. Like the currency reset. I mean, is it going to happen? Will it happen? You work with Winston. I spent a week with him and Jim Mars. And morning, noon, and night, I grabbed both of their sleeves and I kept pulling them together. Laura was there. We were at Isetti Ranch. And it's really sad we lost Jim, but I think he knew too much. Oops. Anyway, what I want to talk about very briefly now is one thing that we want to not put in our body, and one thing that perhaps we might start considering adding to our system. Because right now, 2018, no matter what they're doing outside our bodies, we have to have solutions. My number one thing is I've never been a drinker of alcohol. I don't resonate with it, but a lot of people are. And there's something about alcohol that doesn't make you smarter. It doesn't make you softer, sweeter, more feminine, more intelligent. There's something in it that's highly promoted. And now the state I live in, probably everybody else's state, you can even buy it on Sundays. And I bet they deliver because they want people to change their frequency in that energy. And I was married to one for many years and I didn't recognize it because I never grew up with it. So it's an energy that I know when I get around it, all of a sudden I start feeling uncomfortable. And I'm not judging people. I'm talking about energy, frequency, and the plasma field. You want to lower it, start drinking and drink a lot. You want to raise your frequency? Let's talk about something that I discovered in the last year and a half because I have been challenged, is all I'm going to say, very challenged. And Laura has too, and you have too. We're challenged by people outside ourselves that don't want us teaching. And so for those reasons, we get attacked a lot, targeted, whatever word we want to use. In mid-80s, there was a molecule that was discovered that was changing the way life happens. And it was building life rather than destroying life. And they gave a Pulitzer Prize to the C60 molecule, which is this amazing thing that it was found at the base of volcanoes and the animals were licking it. And they were like, the Indians, the ancients were like, why are the animals licking this foot of the volcano? And they found that it was this molecule that was changing their health. It was giving them extended life, that was healing sores on their skin. And so they were starting to get curious about it. And when I was dealing with a terrible health problem a year and a half ago, a scientist luckily came into my life and offered me C60. And the stuff changed everything. And here I am 15 months later. I've lost 10 pounds. I don't know if you can see it, maybe 15. Not like I'm dieting, but my system has been reborn. And, you know, it wakes me up in the middle of the night. It's not exactly easy. I've got things coming out of my skin, but everything is leaving. That is not what I want in my system. And all my joints, it's like, you know, I'm not perfect. I'm getting older every day. But all of a sudden, I'm starting to realize this stuff works against radiation. This stuff works against all kinds of things that are being done to us. So for me, my system, I'm doing proactive things. And I don't mean to advertise on your show because I'm not advertising. I'm talking about things that work. In my life, I've got really good water. I eat organic food. And if it's expensive for people, eat less, buy less, don't buy junk. But we need to be very conscious of putting only healthy things in our system. And all of us are damaged because we've been living on Earth, breathing, eating, drinking. This is what I use, and it's C60 Purple Power. I used to do it in coconut oil. Now I like the avocado because I digest it better. But this stuff, it's changing the way I think, and I'm unfriggin' stoppable now. When people write me and say, how are you so solid? Well, how are you still smiling with whatever's happening outside myself? I'm like, well, number one, probably that. Number two, I live in a beautiful place, but I'm also really spending a lot of time excited about the wildlife I see. And I want to encourage people to start bringing the earth to your home, to your backyard. And I was telling somebody how to do this little exercise that I do regularly. But what we need to do is start calling in the directions, calling in the wildlife, calling in the elementals. And the way you can do that, I'm just going to go to the cheap base version. If you feed them, they will come. Okay? So number one, I'm telling everybody that I love, build yourself a circle in your backyard. If you've got a great yard, do a big one. If you've got a deck of a condo, do it on a little table and call it a ritual. But you want a circle of stones. Then between the stones, you put a little crystals in that you love. And then you bring in some flowers that you resonate with. And in the middle of that circle, if it's a big one out in your yard, you stand and you set your intentions and you call in everything that you believe in to be with you. But the most important thing is you put food and water in the middle of that circle to invite the earth, the elementals, her wildlife, her birds, everybody. Gift them with food and water. I know I've been knocked at my door because I stick apples in my teeth and feed them to my deer with huge racks on their heads. I mean, I've actually been for the Humane Society, but I still say, if you don't connect with nature, you're going to have a hard time. And even in a big city, you can build your little sacred circle in a little table on your deck and gift the universe every day some fresh food, fresh water, your leftovers. If you take the peels off your apples, stick them in the middle of the table and let somebody find them. But boy, I get so much pleasure and earthly balance with the animals that I have around me, and my house is ridiculous. I love it.
Yeah, and what you're saying is true. We need to change the relationship. We need to change our relationship with nature, with life, and with ourselves. This is really, I think, the main message that's come from both of you today, is that we have to change that relationship. And although we don't endorse products on the Goldfish Report, but Patty has her experience, and everybody needs to try what works for them. There's a lot of people who like to change the pH of their body, and so they feel better doing that. And there's many things, but I mean, you can always make an appointment with our alchemist Laura, and she can help you with that, I'm sure, tell you how to go about changing the pH of your body. But that's really what we're talking about, isn't it, Laura? It's about changing our relationship with ourselves, because I don't know how ultimately, politically, I would say, it would be resolved that these entities really stop preying on us. Because it's really, I understand what you're saying. We have to go within. We have to do our share. But if it's not enough, then what you're saying is that that they can literally, I guess, where's my note I wrote on this? I'm sorry. You said something about, re-engineering I guess the humanity out of us. We could become so hybridized that we lose our sense of our soul essence. Is that what you said, Laura? Did I understand that correctly?
And that's kind of why we're in this planetary sort of storyline, I guess you could say, as far as the mother energy morphing into the planet. Even though that wasn't able to be grounded and anchored, all the advanced beings that had come to Earth, whether that's the Essenes or the early Templars before it got infiltrated, and just, those that really held Christ consciousness, they knew that nothing really could be done until this window period. So even if there were certain missions activated during the timelines, there wasn't a whole lot that could happen until this window, which is a stellar activation cycle, which the Mayans understood. And it's related to the Venus transits. The Venus planet its orbit actually draws a perfect pentagram. And that pentagram is actually correcting the reversals, because the mother energy is really the quintessence, which is the ether. So having her grounded back into the body, that's, earth, that is solid, to have this ether element in the core and also in the cosmos, helps us to see that that's also within ourselves, our inner spirit, right? So, the inner and the outer kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to just notice the medicine. The thing is, when your life gets injured, it has the same response as a physical injury. Regeneration is the response. Equilibrium, the return to equilibrium, is the response in our physical body. Mind control can steer us away from that, and then we just get even worse than we were before. But anytime there's an injury, it's a chance for us to even get stronger and to grow and to, understand things on a greater level. If we don't take care of those things, infection can result. So the programmings are trying to promote infection to the point where we have to give our power away, and we become dependent and addicted to whatever might take that horrible feeling away, that we just can't do this ourselves. So we have to notice that when life gets injured, the same response happens. And the immune system of the elements or creation, which is encoded in nature and in our soul, is that there's going to be a healing response immediately. But if we don't see that, if we don't notice those synchronicities, like if we don't notice our body in its attempt to repair itself, and we move into the other direction and we move towards infection because we choose to not take care of it, or allow all sorts of things to get in there and make it worse, then we're steering in the wrong direction. When your life gets injured, we have to notice, and I haven't always so easily, but this is what I learned along the way. If I went through a bad breakup or some sort of loss or some sort of assault that was very painful, I noticed that if I'm holding on to a victim mentality for too long, because I think that is part of the process. You can't just skip into, oh, I'm healed. Oh, that was no big deal. But once you see that as a part of the process, but once you get to the other side of it, if you allow yourself to get to the other side of it, the synchronicities come in the form of your life is going to get upgraded. There's going to be healing people that come into your life. There's going to be synchronicities to help show you some solutions or modalities that can help you to recover from that. There's things always in our environment that are helping us to upgrade and become better, regardless of what we've been through. But there's always going to be the things that are wanting to lead us down a path of suffering, victimhood, infection. And so we have to notice the signs. What I love to do is when something negative happens and I have maybe a difficult day, or I got slammed over and over again on social media, as much as I can press the delete button, sometimes it gets the best of me. I just go outside, and if a hawk's flying near my head, if I notice this, a bunch of beautiful flowers, it's like, what flower is that? And then I connect with the essence of it. I connect with the essence or spirit medicine of that particular animal. I might see an osprey, I keep my eyes open, because to me, my mother, the earth mother, is showing me the medicine in that moment. Just like my physical body, if it's injured, I don't have to demand that it creates a scar or a scab. It just does it naturally, unless I get in the way of it and I make it difficult because I'm not nurturing it. So if I can love myself enough and nurture myself enough, I'm going to notice the medicine around me, the good people that show up. Maybe, Patty texted me. I'm like, when I'm having a really hard time, it's like, how we have that kind of telepathy between each other, instead of noticing the things that reinforce what that injury did, because we judge it. Oh, that's a misfortune. Oh, I must have done something wrong. Blame, shame and all that kind of stuff. But if we say, I love myself enough to recover, and this was something that I can gain from and learn from, there's always medicine surrounding us. The universe never shuts down on us. So even like the other day, I went outside and, there's these 2 deer and a baby deer, and my cat just jumps on me and licks me, and these moths are flying around, and then these 2 bumblebees fall out of the roof, and they're like mating or something. And I'm just looking around, just soaking up the medicine that the mother is providing at all times. So I think that's how we can begin to just notice that even beyond our food and beyond what we put in our body, we're surrounded by energy, we're surrounded by people, and we constantly have to decide what we're going to hold on within ourselves. What frequency, what intention are we holding within ourselves? Because that's going to light up our third eye, and that's going to pick up on the things that reinforce what we're holding on to. So if we feel less than, if we are in blame or judgment of ourselves, we might start to attract toxic people that make us feel worse. We might decide to drink alcohol to relieve that pain. We might take the lesser road because we don't know what to do with it, versus saying, this was a beautiful thing that I had to go through, and I'm going to allow it to expand me and awaken me even more, we'll just notice that everything gathers around and supports it and nurtures it. But we have to decide internally first that we're willing to give ourselves that gift. And then we'll notice that there's no shortage of healing power, synchronicities, and magic. The minute we go into the low self-worth, that's when everything in the news, everything that we've been socially engineered to believe, everything that we've been conditioned to believe ends up veiling us and compromising us until we can snap out of it.
Yeah, it's very overwhelming too. Yeah, are you saying that we can transmute? You know, look what we're taking in the GMOs. We're getting this fibers, hedgy fibers from the some of the chemtrails, and I don't know. I saw a report that it was in McDonald's food, but I don't know. I haven't seen that myself, but there was a report on that I saw. So, are we able to transmute some of this, Laura? Do you think?
When we're in a higher frequency, the physics are different because it holds kind of the upper hand. Nothing can override it. So I call it, and it's been called the override frequency. And that's the power of alchemy. That's the ability to connect into the ether, which is really like connecting into our higher self and learning that there need be no division between higher and lower self. That if we bring the higher self wisdom into our lower chakras, our physical world will begin to transform, including the things that try and compromise us. The minute we buy into programmings, we're baited in. You know, it's like a mouse eating cheese and then the trap falls. So the minute we buy into the programs, our vibration is low enough for all those assaults to really get the best of us. And those nanites begin to grow. They begin to link in like an antenna to AI. But see, the thing is, we're all exposed to it. So when we raise our frequency enough, and it doesn't mean that a lower frequency is bad, that might be very grounded, but we have to have the anchoring and the grounding plus the high vibration of our spiritual knowledge, wisdom, love, compassionate nature, anchored and grounded. So my belief and what I've experienced with myself is that the frequency of integrity and love is strong enough to dismantle AI and things like copper, magnets. Patty talks a lot about, you know, some of the modalities and the things that she tries, crystals, you know, high vibrational herbs. The thing is, these are low level technologies that are mostly fourth density, because the fourth density is the veil, right? The fourth density or dimension, I know density and dimension is different, so let me just say dimension. That's where the astral parasites are. They mostly hook into our heart because that's where we're most imbalanced. We either don't love ourselves enough, or we're loving other people too much and we forget ourselves, or we lack love and we're just bitter and angry, right? So our fourth chakra, whether it's loving too much or loving too little, is where the balancing act needs to happen, because that's where we get kind of targeted the most, besides our solar plexus, which is our ego. So when we begin to move beyond those layers and that level of density, then the technologies we begin to move beyond. And then we begin to be the deprogrammers. We begin to send out a frequency that helps other people that have attached themselves to it to begin to dismantle it and begin to deprogram. And some people run the other way. That's why there's a lot of attack, not necessarily from trolls, because they don't like the frequency that deprograms them, because they form an addictive attachment to it. So it's very threatening to all of a sudden feel that start to dismantle within their system, right? Because we're sound healing, like through our voice and our frequency. And so some people just don't like it. It's like kryptonite. They're like, you know, you're helping me think for myself. You're bringing me back to my core, because none of us are pushing beliefs onto people. We're helping people become empowered. And that can feel kind of scary. And for others, very, very liberating. So I hope that it's coming across that that's our intention. I get that we all have that in common. But yes, we can absolutely dismantle and neutralize these technologies. And we just have to think, what are high frequency energies? Love, wisdom, truth. And that alone, just committing to that is like committing to a partner. You don't have to obsess over it. You can let go and know it's sort of on autopilot, as long as you stay consistent with it and you show up and acknowledge it every once in a while. Like, you can be in a committed partner, but you got to say, I love you, you know, at least once a day, or else the person might be like, what's going on? So I like to reinforce my devotion to love, wisdom, and truth. And I just remind myself every day that that's what I'm aligned with. And then I can go about my day trusting that I can hold that in my center no matter what comes at me. And then I find I'm not so easily attacked.
Well, it's interesting you said that, because love is a verb. Remember, it's a verb, men and women, because it requires, it's it's an action word. So it isn't simply just like you're feeling inside. It is, love is what you do for another. Love is action. It's an act, you know? So it's very, very, very true. But I just have to say that you're absolutely right, Laura. I think the three of us here have united with the same principle that we're trying to provide. Look, humanity's at war. We need some solutions. We need some divine wisdom. And that's why I wanted to bring the two of you together on Goldfish Report today to provide these, you know, insight and this divine wisdom of the divine feminine. I'm not trying to put us above men, really, I'm not. But we have, I think, we've been endowed with our own abilities. We can't do. Look, I'm just going to be the first one to say I think men have certain functions and women have certain functions that they do very well. Not to say that they can't be interchangeable, but I don't think they do it as well. So I just think that ultimately, you know, ultimately men don't really look to other men for guidance. They look to women for guidance, in fact. So we're here to provide that information. I'm fighting so hard for humanity. I really want, truthfully, for us to understand how to help ourselves, to understand that what we are up against for real, that we are up against this great manipulation. But it's not the end of the story. The story's not going to end until we understand who and what we are and we overcome this. And this is what Laura brought, this is what Patty brought to this report today. It's so important that we understand, that we go within, that we don't become overwhelmed, like Laura was just saying, about all of these things. It's very easy to have one aspect of your life kind of be like the implosion factor for everything else to just come falling down on top of you. A bad breakup, like Laura, like Patty's saying too, a bad breakup can be like a catalyst almost, but is it a catalyst in a positive way or is it a catalyst in a negative form in your life? And as you're both saying, it's use it as a learning experience and find what you can learn from it, no matter what. We've all been there, so we all have to, try to learn something from it. There's always this silver lining. So I just wanted to, again, offer information for people, and if we can just close up with some comments about how can we, you know, this whole light worker new age movement, we kind of started out right here. We're making a full circle at this point. There are some people within, I would say, this new age movement who do not have, they are misleading people, I would say. I'm not going to name names, but there's people, I think, who maybe misled themselves, maybe under MK Ultra mind control, they maybe unwittingly, leading people to a darker agenda. But the whole thing is, it's like if you look at life as a television and you look at it as a channel, just turn the channel, folks. And I think what both of you have said is you have to go and connect with yourself. And one of the images that I got right away when you were saying that, Laura, was just going on a retreat, just completely unplugging, spending, and I'm not big on camping. I really am not, big on sleeping on the ground, but I'll do it for a few hours. But we have to remove ourselves one way or the other from this world that we're living in, because it's like a layer of reality, but it isn't the only reality. But it's the reality that's being offered to us if we take these devices and immerse ourselves in that reality that does become our reality. So what you're saying is that, for some people who may be further along, we may only need to go and spend 20 minutes a day outside or something like that to get grounded and do what you're saying, Patty, feed those animals and watch those animals and nurture those animals and watch them respond to you. And just like Laura said, the earth provides those remedies for you to look at, in nature, to help you heal and things of that nature. But if we're not giving ourselves, and I am guilty of this, I admit it, if we're not giving ourselves that time to be outside in nature, it's not going to happen. It's just, we're going to become more transhumanized, and that's their goal and that's their agenda. And I think that's what we really wanted to bring out in this, is that regardless of what's going on around us, we have the free will choice to participate in it or not. And we have to be responsible for that. We have the answers within us to find out more about who and what we truly are, but we have to be seeking those answers. So for people who, there's a lot of people, I mean, to this day, is this guy for real? Is he good? Is he bad? Is this, I mean, you see it all over Facebook, both of you. I know you see it everywhere. People are asking, well, what do you think about this guy? Well, what do you think about that guy? Or what do you think about this person or that person? And it's kind of like, you know what? And I interviewed a lot of people, I mean, I have to always go with, using my own sense of discernment. But I know, and I'm always thinking, and I do these reports for the people who are listening. It's for the viewers and for the people who are seeking information that I want to provide this information to. And that is, how can they discern? How can they know, who to follow, who not to follow? Be careful who you follow. Everybody, wants to believe that this QAnon is really representing some positive force for change. And I really hope so. And I'm not saying we shouldn't be doing things on our own, but I think we need to have, there's like a hierarchy of change that needs to happen. So we can only, take responsibility for ourselves. But when you're in a position of governing other people, then there needs to be other intervention involved in that. You can't just be thinking of yourself. You have to be thinking about other people as well. So in that regard, we have to learn discernment really, really well. But you have to know yourself, because you'll listen to those voices, as both of you have said, that are inside of you, who are, we are multidimensional beings. Listen to, your intuition. I know this might be awkward for some men, but men have intuition too. Men have all of these chakras. Men have the ability to do these things. And it's not, compromising your masculinity to investigate this and develop this more within yourself. It's that Laura was saying, listen to that inner voice, that little inner, Patty said, that gut feeling, and that will tell you. And I'll tell you, it's never more strong than when you're in a bind. That little voice is like the only one you hear. Isn't that true? So let me just ask each of you, since we're getting close to wrapping up, if there's anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to comment on, anything at all you wanted to comment that either Patty or Laura said, if either one of you want to comment on any of those issues, or if there's anything that we didn't cover you'd like to say, just in closing, what would you like to, what message would you like to leave with our viewers today? Laura, go ahead. I'll let Patty have the last word, since Laura went first this time. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, I just think it's just important to know that, we get a lot of nutrients from our own personal inner sun, and generating that awareness within ourselves also invites a lot of new vitality to enter our being. It's also important that we understand that we are stargates, that we are the ones that can direct consciousness on the planet. So in a lot of ways, when we look at our ancient history, these stargates have been controlled and, somewhat almost blocked up. And now the physical being is finally recognizing that they're the consciousness tool that can actually open the stargates. So what's happening on the planet during this ascension time is also what's happening with us. And it's not coming from a lot of these electronics and a lot of the information that we're getting, although that can help trigger a growth period, but just make sure it triggers a growth period. Always turn back to yourself, always come back to who you are, and be the person that you put yourself first as far as whether or not that information truly resonates and if it really serves you. Always take that time to reconnect with yourself. And I know we talked about that throughout the whole show, but being self-aware and consciously creative is the greatest challenge, because it's our creative channels that manifest things. And if they hold our own divine instructions, it's going to manifest the future we want to see. If it's holding something that we're not fully in agreement to, but we believe we're at the mercy of, then that's giving our power away. And then we're not contained anymore and we end up leaking. So I just wanted to leave it with, it's our connection to this earth, mother, goddess, planet, spirit, unity, consciousness, and sacred union. That's the great liberator. That's the great DNA activator. And in the willingness to do that, we will open up and expand into a greater cosmic family, but in an empowered and sovereign way, which will protect us from any further control or manipulation. And I just want to thank everybody for listening. I hope you feel more empowered. I certainly do, just being with these amazing women. And thank you, Louisa, so much for having me.
Can't hear you.
I was on mute. Sorry about that. It has been an absolute pleasure and a great honor, I have to say, Laura. Thank you so much for being here. And Patty, same with you. But let me have Patty's last word now. Go for it, Patty.
All right. Well, I think that we all said the same thing today, which is take your power back. Stop giving it away. Stop letting it leak. And I did a video where I did a physical exercise that I learned from a real wizard that I want people to take a look at. It's on my Patty Greer films on YouTube, but it's called hashtag Patty Greer, hashtag energy protection. And I set up my camera on a table in the woods and I do this thing and I'm kind of pulling back, but if we can create ways that each of us can feel safe, that each of us can feel powerful. Whatever your tool is, if when you eat a certain thing, you feel fabulous, well, then have that chocolate. You know, do what makes you feel good, because it's not worth waiting for Thursday to wear that purple hat. We need to wear it today. We need to have fun, but it's time to start listening to that little voice. It's time to start feeling those intuitive feelings in our hearts. And it's also time to start tasting the foods that we eat and realizing what all went into it. Sometimes I look at the possibility of, if we all have to go independent, what food are we going to have? It's going to be pretty basic, simple. What can you grow? What can you find? So I'm going to start really appreciating more the incredible abundance that we have. And I think that the difference of going and getting more or sitting back and having gratitude is one more divine piece that I wanted to mention to end this. I am in such gratitude for my life every day. I am in such gratitude for the masculinity of the man I'm with, and the fact that nothing I do throws him for a loop. He chose this. I'm a boatload. I'm a handful. And I mean, you couldn't put a bridle and a saddle on me, but you could certainly take me to dinner and have fun. So he knew that coming in. And what we need to do is look at those people that we're talking to and stop making up who they are and all these illusions that we have, but watch them speak, watch them breathe, watch them move, and listen. Stop going with what we think we know and our illusions and what we were told. Watch, look, listen, taste, smell, and start being you again, because we're not AI. I'm human, and I am so feminine, and I am so grateful to be here and to have friends like you guys. And I think I gave up 30 for every friend I have today. Small price. Look how fast I get to move in this ascension window. I don't have all that stuff clinging on my ankles. All those old friends that said, chemtrails, what? Fake teacher, what? Crop circles, you must be out of your mind. It's like, see ya. I don't need that. And they don't need me. So it's that evolution of my consciousness to say, cut, cheers, have a great life with an authentic smile. I am smiling through this silly little chapter I'm in now. At the end of ufology, I'm just smiling through it because life is good. And I'm choosing to do all the best things for me and have the coolest friends like you guys and like my other friends. But I don't believe in secrets. I don't believe in NDAs. I don't believe in, you know, all this silencing of social media on all these different platforms. But what that says to me is somebody's pretty scared of the truth. Somebody's insecure. And when we move into a time when we're all totally proud of what we're doing, those things will be bygones. Bad food, bad water, bad air, all that stuff, Soros related or whatever, is going to be not even in the history books because it's no longer important. Corruption is not even going to be important when we get to the other side. And it's going to be brave women like us and brave men that are divinely feminine and masculine that are going to get us to the next. So I'm voting for the next with everything in me, and I know we're going to get there. Thank you, both of you.
I just have to thank you so much. It really, I was such an honor to be here with such incredibly intelligent and, what I would say, just, very advanced souls and divine spirits. And I'm really very privileged. And I have to thank you both very, very much with all my heart. I'm so grateful that we had this conversation today. And I'm really hoping that for the viewers out there, that it also does something for you, that it provides some insight into improving the quality of your life and how you understand the world around us, and just realize, yes, there's information about our history that's been hidden. This information, I presume there will be mentors that will present this over time to us. But it is the time for us to wake up and realize that we have to take our power back. And I think this conversation today was really an example of that, and how to do that as well. And I think both of our wonderful, lovely guests have given us a lot of information to think about. You might want to just hit replay after this ends, because we need to really, listen to this a couple of times, I think, and really get the benefit. And it's for the men and it's for the women. We're in this together, but we are at war. And if we don't really come to terms with who and what we truly are, and know that we have the power to change it ourselves, then we're going to, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I just don't think that it's going to be the future that you and I want. So Laura and Patty, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I mean, with all my heart. I thank you so much. What a pleasure and an honor it is to be here with you today. And to all of our viewers, their links to their description section will be in the description section of the video. Whatever websites and channels that they have, whatever contact information will be in the description section of the video. Folks, please share this far and wide. We are very heavily shadow banned on all of our platforms. So you can do your part by sharing this and spreading this information far and wide, spreading it on all your groups on Facebook, getting it onto all of the bloggers who you know, and we have our own network, of course, as well. But we do have to show we're not going to sit back and just let them destroy our world. We have a right to live on this planet in peace and to evolve as humans. And I know that these three women here intend to do that. So thank you all for being with us. Thank you for viewing. And this concludes this edition of the Goldfish Report.